podcast listeners, if you hear my voice right now, I need you to do something for me. I want you to take out your phone or on your computer, go to Apple Podcasts, search for Ask Your Oldhead Podcast. You'll see my logo, my little picture, my little image there. Find the show. Please rate and write a review. It's a small thing, but it helps others find this work and find what I'm doing here. And it really, really matters, as small as that may seem. So if you could please do that before we get into the show, I very much appreciate it. Thank you for listening. Let's get into it. Peace. I'm Majestic.
My brother Justice Rajee. Peace.
Peace. What's happening, man?
Same old. Not quite, but
but different. So,
yeah.
I mean, we'll just share for the listening audience. By the sound or by pickup, we're in the same place and time again, recording, not via satellite, and we are in LA, and we come together, and I thought it'd be good to have a conversation about going back to traveling together a little bit, and also just some LA insights, because at least for me, some of the joys of trying to pick a place at random, and in a sense with Airbnb is you don't really know where you're going. At least, maybe some of y'all do, but I'm sort of like, well, I mean, it seems close to some stuff and on the way to these other things, and or at least fits certain needs. But any event, we in LA, we together for a gathering, with each other and some other of our brothers. So I guess I just want to start with what's something that comes to your mind, or has come to your mind so far in our adventure.
Yeah, I think one thing is the importance of travel, and obviously COVID has shifted a lot of those things, and I think people's comfort, and I think understandably it is. But you do get to see the importance of travel, especially, there aren't a lot of places in America that are truly diverse. And that's what you kind of recognize. As much as we say that, when we talk about diversity, really, like sometimes you're saying how many black people are there. Sometimes you're saying how many, Latinos or, some space Chicanos, and I respect that everyone doesn't use Latino. Different people use different terminologies, for who it is. And so, traveling does get to give you a different place. I would argue in the United States, the places that are like truly diverse, and it's in a high sense, almost like in a European sense, right? Are New York, Chicago, Miami, Los Angeles, Houston, the DC area, if not DC. The northern New Jersey suburbs, right? Like the Union cities, Jersey cities, right? I could be missing something here of another one, but like those are the places I would, when someone says like these are, in the Bay Area, pardon me. But those are, even though those are big cities, the particular percentage of the population that we're talking about is relatively small.
Yeah.
So I think travel gives you the ability to actually see the things that often in America we don't, in our cities we don't see, which is also part of separation, demonization, othering, and a whole host of stuff, man. So I think that's one, just to touch on the importance of traveling, and obviously in a world of, pandemics, and eventually, as we've built on before, endemics, right? Well, I think with COVID, you're going to see a place where we move to more of an endemic place where there are outbreaks.
Yeah, that we get spiked, like, it's COVID. It's a time. There's a bubble,
right?
You know what I mean, and it goes up in a place and comes down, and
and so you know what I mean. Just still figuring out a way to do that safely, of course, but still figuring out a way to make that work, and travel, becomes really important.
Yeah. Well, I think one of my first insights, and it's on there's still a value to being in the same place and time with people,
Mhm.
despite the technology and tools that we have. That especially if you already know someone, that you
Right.
can still see them, you can still
Right.
speak to them, but it is not the same as being in the same place and time.
Right.
So coming out here and trying to understand, like, well, what do you do? What are the rules? With the pandemic conditions, like how much hanging out can you do? And also we at least I speak from we have a certain age. I mean, there's stuff that I would want to go to, but whatever wild excitements or fantasies one may imagine their 20s to have been, what I'm saying, oh man, we gonna be partying and like whatever,
Right.
whatever, like is out of some 80s, what I'm saying, what do you call it,
Or some
movie,
rap video.
right? I'm saying, like, yo, it's gonna be bottles of champagne and like sparklers, like, I mean, like, I don't know if I'm all in for all of that anyway. As I had a conversation with my daughter about, like, we used to go to parties and dance at them. I don't know what y'all do at y'all parties. Like, I don't know if y'all actually dance. Y'all stand around. You look at each
Right.
other.
Look at each other.
You know what I'm saying?
Look on
Like,
their phones and then
look
send
at,
messages to each other.
but I mean, but in a very real sense, like being coming back to being away from the place where you normally stay provides you sometimes the amount of detachment that is required to kind of be in the moment with people. That is this sort of the value of pilgrimage, of
Right.
walking, doing some sort of outing with people, and so sort of that idea we may, you know, form into idea about solitude, which could be a thing, or being at some other kind of mass gathering, but sometimes just being in a small gathering with the right people. You know what I mean? In
Right.
terms of having a space for catharsis and thought.
And there's an intimacy in it that I think obviously technology allows us to do the broad swaths of things, right? And the
Mhm.
platforms that technology has to allow us to do the broad swaths of being able to engage. But to your point, um, and I know people sound like Flintstones when they say this now, but there is, to your point, there is something to being in the same space,
Mm.
right? There is a communication of ideas. Like I respected everybody who came up with virtual happy hours,
Mhm.
but I didn't like no virtual happy hours.
Yeah.
Like me watching me pour something and you drink. Now, there was some stuff that people like sent everyone cocktails and stuff and like had you be able to create the cocktail. That's interesting.
Well,
Bullet
so-
bullet bourbon holla at us. So
Mhm.
I saw y'all do that. I ain't gonna say no more about that, but I saw y'all do that for one of the brothers. So but yeah, no, I think there's something there to that. And I think, with as much as we've been able to accomplish, to your point, there is a catharsis and a conversation and a proximity, an importance of proximity,
Mhm.
right? I think the pandemic shifted a lot of things, but it did also kind of it obscured and maybe in some ways minimized the importance of proximity, but in some ways it brought it back to how important proximity actually is. It has everything to do you want to eat at a restaurant with other people, or do you want to be in a space with people who are not in your household, right?
Mhm.
And what that does and what's additive about that, right? There's
Mhm.
something additive about those experiences and how the human brain is wired to see those experiences as additive.
Mhm. Mhm.
That it's important that we don't forget.
Indeed, indeed. So as a trying to think of, like, so coming here and into this particular city, and peace to everybody that's from LA that I know, what I mean, or lives in the greater Los Angeles area, you know what I'm saying? Um, Surrounding municipalities included or
Right.
whatever have you. Um, but I think we've talked about sort of the nature of the big cities in the United States, right? So you got New York, you got here, you got Chicago, you got Houston, uh, and they all have their own, like, flavor.
Right.
You know what I mean? Their own structures and pieces. And this is still a city that, for much as how you might see it in the light of, like, boys in the hood, Menace to Society, Friday. movies, you know what I'm saying, to at various action movies. So like Heat, which is very much a movie that's like in LA with
That's very
the
true.
robberies and
Yes,
stuff.
true.
And,
Yeah, LA is a muse in Heat in a very unique way. You're
you know what I'm
right.
saying? Pulp Fiction.
It's a character. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Various other movies. It's still like a place that I'm trying to understand. Like it functions different than, you know, being in New York. You know what I'm saying? Being in Manhattan or the Bronx or Brooklyn.
Right.
It's not like being in any neighborhoods in LA and vice versa. Like they're different. You know what I'm saying? And then it's a, you know, it's not tropical outside right now, but the idea that we have in California is like, man, hot palm trees, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
you know, fruity drinks.
And shout out to you for breaking down the fact that palm trees are not indigenous to.
Yeah, they ain't got nothing to do with Southern California. But like, if it wasn't for people bringing them, they wouldn't be no.
I was today years old when I read, and it's like, you know how you acknowledge and recognize something, but you don't recognize, like, yeah, palm trees kind of are there and not there because they're not everywhere in Cal. Like, yeah.
I mean, when you start looking at it, they're like in places where you end up going.
Right.
They're not just randomly just like,
right.
Look at the side of the road and there's just a palm tree growing, little baby palm tree over there. Like, look at, you know, it obscures that. I mean, this a part of LA's history was the defense industry and the manufacturing. Not really like Hollywood was a part of it, but a whole lot more people came here to work in defense.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And related, you know, related work. The, you know, agriculture just in the state, you know, still like I think 70% of your produce in America is now grown here. It didn't used to be that way.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But it is now. And so when we think of the idea of a place versus the reality of a place, I think it's sometimes good to be in the place so that you can actually get a sense of what's happening there. Like, what are they doing? What's on people's minds? I know one of the observations the guy said was like, there's all these billboards for TV stuff, right? Which, you know, you might not think about. I think at home, you know, wherever you live,
right?
Like, oh, it's a billboard for TV, but that's important here,
right?
I mean, because it's a big city and it's billions of people, so if lots of people watch here,
right?
You know, obviously more people might watch the show, but also there's, to my understanding, there's a value related to the industry itself and like how you're being like a status piece is something I remember reading around. Like, are people in the industry promoting your show that other people that critique the industry that are involved in that are here are aware that your show exists?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so almost ads like for the public, but also for people in the industry to know that your show, like, oh, look, there's what's the name?
Right.
They got a big billboard on, you know, whatever, La Cienega or whatever. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's an interesting, you know, thing to observe, you know, on my this most recent voyage out here.
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point, I think different as cities evolve, they have their own character, and LA has its own character because it definitely is. It's a place. The other place I could compare it to is like Atlanta, where now when you be like someone lives in Atlanta, you don't really mean they live in Atlanta. Like the vast majority of people you meet, to be like, "Yo, where'd you go?" To be like, "I moved down to Atlanta." You move 45 minutes from Atlanta, which is fine. Same thing in LA. Like, yo, where I live in LA. Well, that could mean so many things in so many ways.
Yeah.
It's different to me. Like, where'd you move? New York. That means you moved to New York City.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's not to be confused, right? But when you have places that become defined by metro areas, become defined by, honestly, also huge growth. Right? Like, LA is defined by sprawl. It's defined by, like, you're going to be in your car. Right? But it's also a place that you can see mountains and the ocean and the hills all within 20, 25 minutes. Right? Like it captivates in a different way. And I've really been thinking this in the context of like the Black music industry came here, right? If you think post post Motown, right?
Mhm,
So when
mhm,
Berry Gordy famously moved from Detroit to Los Angeles, he shifted the culture of music,
mhm.
right? The culture of music had already come out here with some of the movie houses and people who came out to do stuff, and there's enough time and research if you want to go into the Chicago outfit and its relationship to movie
Mhm,
houses and record labels.
mhm.
It's all there for you. Or you could watch The Black Godfather, which I just suggest you do that and then go do your other research. Starting
Right.
on, man. But like, so you think about like, yeah, black music post Motown came here, but hip hop as a black music center was in New York,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
Then the center became like Atlanta. LA was always the outpost for the record labels,
mhm,
but the
mhm.
talent and the culture. But what's now interesting, if you think about it, there's been this mass migration of ideas of like people being like, yo, we're going to LA.
Mhm,
Where before it'd be like, yo, I'm moving down to Atlanta. Now, if you think about all the rappers, they tell you about how much time they spend in Los Angeles,
mhm.
right? Because they're cross checking opportunities in movies and doing all this other stuff
Yeah.
as a media place. So it's created this shift of like people to like the energy of moving to LA, but then you have also the Los Angeles culture of black folks,
Mhm,
which is unique unto itself. And I'm not necessarily talking about the street organization culture, although obviously that is included.
mhm, mhm.
There is still just a unique culture of black Angelinos and black folks from Los Angeles. You know what I mean? And also, I think I want to touch on this. There's this thing we have in the black community, which I think we want to talk about when like black folks from somewhere else keep moving somewhere. And
Mhm,
then the kind of latent feelings of black people who are from the place where they keep moving to,
mhm.
kind of not wanting you to keep coming.
Yeah, yeah,
like not wanting you to keep bringing your stuff from that other place to them. You
yeah.
see it in Black Atlantans a little bit, right? Like people who are from Atlanta. You see it kind of in some folks who were from either DC or PG or Montgomery County. You see them talk about like and
Like,
there's a tension there.
yeah. No, that's you see it. I mean, I think you see it everywhere. You see it in Portland for sure.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? You see it in other. It's the idea of like you everybody's cool with being together till you feel a little bit like maybe they getting something that you thought you should at least had first right of refusal on.
right,
Like you be like, wait a minute, man, how you gonna talk to them new people?
right,
And they be like, well, what I mean, or the idea that they can have a different relationship with the place, right? Because I think, and I wonder, this would be more of a wonder if for bigger, like the bigger the city, how the our experience wherever we live is very idiosyncratic and specific to us, and like we think
hmm
about it, and but we have the ability to feel very like confident and strident that our perspective of the place is an accurate perspective,
right,
right? So then when other people come to the place and then they start moving around in it and they're like doing stuff that you don't do or don't have access, don't feel you have access to, or don't think that's on the map for you, or you don't track that as a part of what you do if you are from or a part of that place, whatever the
right,
place may be.
right,
Then you like, what them people doing here? Why they must be over there. They doing something that, I'm saying, they're doing something that
right.
maybe is undermining me or is taking away. And it's a bit, and we could definitely get into like the class dynamics. Like if you coming out here for a job, and so maybe you came to LA for the tech industry, or you came to LA for the entertainment, like any
Right.
of the industries, especially the higher paying industries,
Right.
um, that folks that are from here may not feel they have had the opportunity to access. Um, what and then in other cities, how do we connect people who are from the place to the people that are moving through the place because of whatever opportunities that might
Right.
be there?
And then I think there's stuff wrapped up in identity. I think there's a built environment conversation here that's just different,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
Like like we was building on earlier, just like how the place feels, right? And like it's largely flat, but not exclusively,
mhm,
right? Um, you also in this town have this like again, you don't have it in a lot of cities where it's like, okay, you went through this neighborhood and it's like it's little Guatemala, and then you went over here and it's little Ethiopia, then you went
Mhm.
over here, it's little San Salvador,
Mhm.
right? That's unique, but to have the density in the space for these various communities to come together really and still keep a space,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? Like I think LA has five the LA area has five Chinatowns.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Five, right?
Mhm.
Like the only place that in any way touches that is New York City, right?
Mhm.
So just even this kind of culture of the sprawl and of like these different pockets of you got a space where it's like the Persian community, you got a space where we're at with the you know what I'm saying, with the Sephardic Jewish community,
Mhm.
right? Which is even a unique set of food, a unique set of things that are different than more of an Eastern European
Mhm.
Jewish community,
Mhm.
right? But that's something that LA gives you access to. But at the same time, it could be totally walled off to you based on how you travel around that space, like most other cities,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, it's yeah, it's a unique place. It's a place that feels as open, but then has also, once you hit the wrong corners, it has an outlaw culture to it.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Like again, maybe connected to the street organizations and maybe just not. Sometimes it's just like, look at that at a car dealership that don't feel like quite a car dealership. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right. Right.
something going on around in that chop shop that don't feel chop shoppish.
Right. Right.
Um,
Well, my thing too is just the amount of places like riding as we've been driving around this area, and it's a similar structure of like those storefronts and um different businesses that have like have like the gated parking lot. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, man, I wonder what actually is the business that takes place in that thing that's
right.
there. You know what I'm saying? Like it looks like is that vacant? I don't think that's vacant. But I can't tell what is actually happening in there,
But
right?
yeah, I think to your point though, you brought up a good point too. Like, especially in quote unquote legacy cities, you will be in those places and there's like vacancy,
Mhm.
right? There's like abandoned buildings.
Yeah, yeah,
That's not a culture here
yeah,
of like abandoned buildings.
yeah.
And that even feels, no matter what neighborhood you in, I don't care what place you in, you just don't feel that, right? And that's even a different perspective, especially when you're coming from the Rust Belt in particular,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
So if you've been spent some time in Cleveland or Pittsburgh or Buffalo or some, you know what I mean, some of these smaller places, you just see mass like abandonment.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? And I think that that's something that you can perceive as different. So I just want to also just quickly go back to that whole idea when the music culture started to shift out here. Then you also had this idea again, moving from New York and even moving from LA, moving from Atlanta, even though Atlanta still is, clearly in our hindsight, it's clear in our vision as far as like black music
mhm,
culture and social capital. But then you have this idea of like these clubs in LA and this whole culture of LA. And then the whole thing about people having to come in and check in LA,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
Like you got to come to the town and let certain people know when certain people are being your entourage through this town to function
mhm,
so that nothing happens to you.
mhm,
You know what I mean? Like, because there are real rules. Again, it's something we've talked about specifically within the black and brown community here. There are real rules,
yeah,
right? And you neglect them at your own peril.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times, you will have this idea like, man, I can go anywhere, especially, knowing who we are and we're framing ourselves as citizens of the world, as my mother would say.
mhm,
I'm showing up as me. That's cool. But showing up as you in this world means something different than showing up as you in anywhere else.
mhm, mhm,
And you have to respect what that means because it has real implications.
mm,
You know what I mean? And I think that's also a unique part of this city that that idea. And like I said, it ain't necessarily about checking in, but it's really about like what are the rules of the road,
yeah,
right?
right.
in honoring that. So whether you're honoring that on the street level, or you're honoring that with how you're doing business, or you're honoring that with thinking about how you as someone is going to do business with folks from various communities, there's a rule to the road in this town that is much more specific, I think, than in other places.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think the other thing, just on a I guess more fun tip, is that I still generally like have an idea of how the streets and the directionals of things here.
Mm-hmm.
But then it'd be like part of that is it's things that look familiar to other parts of the city that I've been to more often, but are really like a whole 2 miles away from here. Like they're not actually close to here. Like they're close to here in that sense. But all right, so
it's like close in the LA way versus close in not LA way.
Right. And trying to like use, landmarks and find your way around, and I know this street cuts into that. You know what I mean? But like I still I don't totally have that for this city. Like I think as y'all observed when y'all went down the Inglewood, that the Pico and La Brea are like a couple blocks away from each other down that part of town, but by the time you get up this part of town, they're several more blocks away from each other. So if you were trying to map where you're going, you're like, wait a minute, I think it's a street over there. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? You could easily get lost. And I think it's a unique feature. I mean, the spot we were going for a few meals, is like now I have it mapped in my head how to get there from here, right? Because we done drove it twice. But if you ask me without using the GPS to start from some other position in the city, I still don't. I'd have to like think about it for a minute. They'd be like, oh, if we were in downtown LA, it was like, we're gonna go to that same Doomies. I'd be like, let's hit the GPS, because I don't have, like where, and even though the city is a grid and the streets cross, it's not a grid like as easy to least to navigate as like Manhattan, where it's like, well, I'll just go north, and then eventually I hit the number street and turn left or right.
Right. It becomes simple. And I think I want to talk about location and centering here. I would argue that this city, through now 30 some years of hip hop music, has centered streets in our heads differently than almost every other place in the country.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like the idea being like, now you're on Figueroa, and all people who listen to early Ice Cube, had a Figueroa,
right?
Or Normandy, or Western, obviously Crenshaw, Slauson, Pico, Wilshire, Fairfax, right? Like these are all streets that just in music culture you've heard over and over again. So you're almost centered. So to your point, you can think that you know where you're at. Like I'm on Wilshire. That doesn't mean you could be a lot of places. I'm on Pico. You could be a lot of places and be on Pico that are vastly different.
They're
from
not
each
the same
other.
place.
Right. They're not the same place, but we've been located. I'm on Normandy. You know what I mean? I'm off Crenshaw. Like it means different things, different places. So I think one of the things I did think about the science of and the power of culture and the power of communication that frames a place for us that you think you know it, even though it's a sprawling metropolis and you don't know what it is.
Right.
It's like, again, people could say Fulton Street in New York, 125th Street in Harlem, maybe. But I would argue there are far more streets in this city that have been chronicled in your head. You know,
than any like a neighborhood name in Bed-Stuy, you know what I'm saying, Brownsville,
right?
You know what I'm saying, but not like the street, any street.
Right. There's no street. That's what I'm saying. There's no street in New York that you're like, or no street, I would argue, in any other place. No, not even Atlanta. Like I can't think
and I might not saying I'm the best knower of like Houston music, but I can't think of. I've heard of like the different wards.
The wards, right?
Right, but everybody say about a certain street.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying, or a certain avenue or something like that. I don't know if that's just a feature. You know what I mean? But here, like the street names, they've been put into the tapestry, so to speak.
Yeah, they've been put into your brain as like real. You know what I mean? To the point you think about those streets, even though those streets literally run for 10, 20 miles, right? Like you think about them and like you know where you're at. But again, I think it's the power of, the original Black Angelino culture and then the host of people who have added to the, as you would say, the tapestry of this area, that then make us frame this place, so it's like, for me, and this is a lot of cities, it's all that you think it is and it's nothing that you think it is. And a lot of cities are those things. They're everything you think they are. And in some ways, they're nothing you think they are. You know what I mean? And that's a search for a city that always occurs. You know what I mean? And especially, and I'll stop here, one of the things about, we was building earlier about like particular cities that might traffic in nostalgia, right? And they traffic in nostalgia because nostalgia and legacy are their brands, right? This is a unique place that like manufactures nostalgia while it has nostalgia, right? But then it also manufactures like these frozen ideas of concepts like Venice Beach. And even though Venice Beach is nowhere what like Venice Beach used to be, you're still thinking that Venice Beach is like that, right?
Right.
There's still people working out on the beach, but it's just not what it was maybe in 79.
Right.
But this place is a really good way of like keeping that like present in your brain.
Yeah. I think the only other like touch point I wanted to share or get your reflection on is, being here for the last couple of days and having like work to do and other stuff. So maybe not just being out and about, as much as one would like to do and like to be. There's still something that I think is similar to other, like, especially like big, like larger cities where it's like, no matter where you're at, if you pop open the whatever your map app of choice and start looking for like food or restaurants, you'll actually find like, oh snap, I'm near stuff. Right. Which is something that you don't find in not bigger cities. Right. Like it's just the nature of larger metropolises that you have, more potential for, commerce, quite frankly. But even on this, strip, this, stuff that's close to us, like, do like that, then with that becomes, if you didn't know where you were at by looking at what the food that's close, you go like, oh, I'm in it. All right. I'm in, whatever the culture or community that is in that space, you find out, oh, I must be near these folks. Cause if you go up certain parts of Harlem and then it seems like there's various Dominican, food spots, I must be I'm in a Dominican area, what I'm saying? If you here, I mean, we're near, it appears to be a fair amount of Israeli restaurants like that are that in the way they present food, that they're doing these items specifically within an Israeli style. You know what I'm saying? Not just like a Mediterranean, so to speak.
Right.
But then also there's like, Jack in the Box and Del Taco, like all of the other, is it's a donut place. You know what I'm saying? That's a non
Holy moly donut shop.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to juxtapose that, like like how do those businesses and those entities function? Like where do you see the community that supports those places?
That's what I'm saying. I think the thing about this place is it's so spread out that there's an assumption about mobility, right? So, but at the same time, there's a density that says there's enough around here for the things to be supported by people who are here, but also people are constantly in travel and constantly in transit. So the idea of eating at a place is really different than I think in other cities where you're talking about like somewhere being a destination, right? You're like, okay, I'm gonna go to this place over here, versus you just might be traveling through here and be like, oh, you know what? They got a good falafel spot over here, or they got a good taco spot over here, or I'm gonna go support this, like I said, Guatemalan restaurant. I'm gonna go to this Italian restaurant, right? I'm gonna go to Santa Monica and eat on the promenade, right? Like, so there's so many different kind of options and opportunities locating food within place that I think for a lot of cities still is a challenge because we're moving away from like this place being a quote unquote little this or little that. Where
Mhm.
here you still have that
Yeah.
and you have a concentration, right? And you just have like it being a good food town,
Yeah.
right? Like, get around different places. It's just a good food town, whether you're eating late night vegan food, whether you're having jerk tacos from somewhere, whether you was down Simply Wholesome. You know what I mean?
Mhm, mhm.
Shout out Simply Wholesome. Like, whether regardless, you're going to get like something good and something interesting that is also unique to this place. And so I think that's also one of the things that makes this place unique as far as grounding and rooting in the neighborhood that you're in, but
Mhm.
also things that serve as a destination, and what it means for things to be a destination and travel for like certain kind of food,
Mhm.
right? Like there's not too many places in the world you're gonna get a certain quality of vegan Mexican food late at night.
Yeah.
Like it's just not just you know what I mean. It's not a shot to nowhere, but I mean I would argue as a place that person that's plant based that eats all over the country and has eaten different places in the world, like L.A. With just pure options
Mhm.
is probably the best plant based place in the country,
Mhm.
just with pure options, right? And part of that is also the commerce element of it, to your point, where people are like, hey, I need to eat a certain way. I need to show up a certain way. So then restaurants and culture accommodate that fact.
Mhm.
Like no one should ever be confused that people are putting impossible burgers and stuff in their places because they want people to be healthier. That's not the case. They're doing it because people with money are saying, I don't want to eat this.
Right. Right.
And then people are saying, oh, you don't want to eat that? You want a green juice? Well, here you go.
Right. Let me
Right?
let me give you what you want.
Let me give you what you want. Do you want food, like the stuff you used to eat just without a meat product? Fine. Let me give you what you want because that's what you want. You still want to eat a shrimp po' boy. You just don't want to eat shrimp no more. So we'll
Mhm.
find out a way to give it to you, right? But I think what it does, it creates a tapestry of even locating yourself in the city as far as the different places to eat and experience the town, which are just again very unique. Yeah, one thing that and let me know but one thing I think I wanted to touch on that I've really been thinking about this weekend is this concept of like how do men grow together?
Mhm.
There's a lot of space, especially for black women, and I would say I'm sure in worlds I may not be as aware, but for you know, uh indigenous women or women that identify as Latino or Latina, Chicano, but like for spaces for women to like come together. And especially I think in this space we're in now, folks are really looking at like the role of like strengthening women, right? For worlds that are not usually helpful and open to them and sometimes are toxic.
Mhm.
But when men get together, it's like, all right, go see a football game and go fishing. Like
Mhm.
almost do something to just almost forget your life.
Mhm.
Like your life is so stressful that like you just need 3 days to like not think about your life,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? You need 3 days to fulfill your head with some sort of sport and play, right? Versus, looking at how, brotherhood and how men actually connect and relate to each other, which frames quality relationships that then should extend and expand to other places in their world.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And I just think for me, that has become a really important part of what I'm learning with everybody this week. Is that like we cannot assume that the men in building relationships with other men can be reduced to like its most base element.
Mhm.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, hope you're having fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I
Well,
mean?
it's
Like,
the
no growth and development. Just hope you're doing something to get your mind off the fact that you got to do something when you get home.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think too. There's the aspect of like you know, and I think we talked about this a bit, over the last couple of days, but the way we are socialized and what the kind of the ideas that we create a framework for what we feel is an appropriate way to like be with the fellas. You know what I'm saying? And just for anyone that's listening, I'm not saying that means if you're not doing like if you get with your partners and y'all go have a golf trip. You know what I mean? If y'all like I'm not dissing y'all golf trip. Like go do the golf trip. I know some cats that's golf dudes on some old heads that's golf cats and they go like but they play golf, they're all into playing golf. Right. So they go and they do the rain and they have, beverages and meals and everything else around that activity. Whatever the kind of the image you might get of a bunch of men hanging out together because there is something to, especially at different points in men's lives, with the more of you to get together, sometimes the intelligence decision making apparatus starts to go down in terms of like, hey, well, should we do that? Yes, we should absolutely do that. It's like maybe y'all shouldn't do that. So like, that piece bearing in mind, but that like if you that making space to go be with other folks, other men, and within the context of that, create some space to talk about, some level like, something that you want to be held accountable about or updating them on just what's happening in your world.
That's right.
Like you can do that, and then y'all can go have like, whatever it is you like to eat, or if you deal with certain beverages and you want to go like we're gonna go drink beers and we're gonna go watch the sports balls. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Various, whatever if you into the sports. But it does not have to be sort of like, guys, we need to go see some boobies. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, we need to inspect that idea that if you're putting a bunch of men together, that like some sort of wildness.
The most base element, right?
Yeah,
like the most base thing is going to happen.
Yeah, and that's it's not healthy that more folks would be like, so wait, y'all got together and y'all didn't go to the booby bar? And it's like, nah, dog. Like, why I gotta go? Like, I mean? It's like, I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying, y'all was there talking to each other. Like, yes. Like, I was talking to my brothers. Like, I went somewhere to relax, to the degree
it's the soft
that I could.
Bigotry of low expectations,
Yeah.
to quote President Bush, right? Like, it's the bigotry of like, yo, is men. So you're just going to be men. You're going to be boys, right? You're going to do, you know what I mean? It's going to be like Animal House. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to be a conversation about your thoughts, perspectives, ambitions, right? And I think we have to shift that for young people. We have to shift how men perceive what that means. We also have to shift how women perceive what that means. Because if women are perceived it like, again, well, when men get together because they've been chained back by their lives, they must act a certain way when they all get together.
Yeah.
Because secretly, they all want to be that thing and they don't get a chance to do it. And I think we learned that from TV.
Yeah.
Right? Like, go be with guys, huh? Right? Guys trip. And then we've now framed all of it like, no, you also, men have to, be amongst each other and then talk about some of the other things that are important. Right? And so I think we have to be very wary of the soft bigotry of low expectations. Of what it means to convene and what it means to come together. And especially when you have shared values and a shared outlook, right? When you have shared values and shared outlook, then the shared expectation is growth and development. The shared expectation is authenticity, and deep engagement. The shared vision is, being able to maybe have different experiences. You know what I'm saying? But it's not to almost like forget the life you have.
Right.
But then that's the point to like, yo, your life ain't really that fun. You really are held hostage the rest of your life, right? And so where those ideas where it's like men are really held hostage the rest of their lives, and only when they get away can they really enjoy themselves.
Yeah. And so, thanks for bringing that up because I wanted to. I think it's important that if we, I guess I would say how I would say this, if we want to operate in the world of the future that is not the world of the past, then we have to embrace doing things differently, but also doing some things that, oh yeah, guys, I got together to go to like, a concert, see the concert together. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, you could do that. Or this other thing, and I would say we're probably not unique in that, I've heard of other men meeting up, like having an annual trip of some kind among
Absolutely.
friends or whatever.
Absolutely.
But within that, understanding that there's a value in terms of the depths and the growth of the quality of your relationships when you travel with somebody, and you make some, but then also making some intentionality to sit and ensure you talk about something that's meaningful, while you have the opportunity to do so that you don't, at no point down the road, it would be the worst to find out. It would be bad to find out that someone was suffering undue.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Because they never shared any of what was happening. You know what I'm saying? Or, as you spoke to, like I said, if every time you get away or leave your family or whomever, whatever your regular world is, whether it consists of like family in the sense of like,
Right.
You got kids and a partner of some kind, or just family being your macro family, whoever that is, right? That then you just act a cold fool, or you ends up being a 3-day stupor. I ain't here to judge you too much, but I'm gonna say,
much.
maybe that's not the healthiest norm that maybe we should look at. Might be wise to consider, like maybe you could adjust some of what your regular life looks like. You know what I mean?
Right. So you really enjoy that. No, we have to get to a place where you enjoy your life. So going outside of that doesn't start to be like it's additive.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. It should be restorative to some degree, but it shouldn't be restorative to the degree where it's almost like it's your 48-hour, hell pass. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's your 48-hour, like whatever goes, right? Like,
Yeah.
Vegas is Vegas for a reason. And it's a reason Vegas is Vegas. And the reason that Vegas tells you that what stays here is here because it was built off the culture of that, right? It was built off the culture of this is a place for outlaws and, drug traffickers and purveyors of services.
Yes.
Right. Like, so when people think about when they go to Vegas to do that stuff, that is that is based on the history of what is carefully crafted for you to feel like that. Like you're not doing anything in Vegas that hasn't been done in Vegas.
Right.
You're being sold an idea. And so I think.
Yeah. But the idea gives you license to engage in it.
Right.
Because people know I'm coming here. So you know what I'm saying? They know what's up. You know what I'm saying? Right. So if I do
and, I think we talked about it. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to El Diablo. That's all I'm gonna say. You know what I'm saying? Everybody got places they like to go. But but you know what I'm saying? Like, but I think in the bigger picture is if the pandemic has really, if we've learned anything from the pandemic and resulting elements, it's about the mental and emotional and cultural health and wellness and well-being of people. And that has to be primary for all people, because we recognize how unhealthy we all have been, right? The pandemic, literally, sometimes even physically, right? This particular, virus is feeding, in a sense, on compromised systems. It's harming people at a higher element who have had other comorbidities, as we may from a health perspective, but it's also harming. So our mental and emotional and cultural health and wellness and physical health and wellness, it has to be so important and primary. And we have to figure out what are ways that are not only restorative but additive to our collective experience, and so that men can also continue to be their best selves while being the foundation, depending on how you qualify your families and your relationships. But, in the context of what we may share, being a foundation and being a support for your family, that, the 10th time when men get together is not to suspend reality for 48 hours. It's actually to more deeply engage reality for 48 hours in a way that you may not have been able to in your other space. So.
Indeed. Well, I think you I think you summed it up well. I'll just say in closing for the record, enjoy the times you can, with people. Get outside. Uh, sometimes even if you've been somewhere before, figure out if you've been, maybe do something different. You know what I mean, when you go there. And if you have the chance to travel with folks that you care about or folks that are important in your life, make some time to do it. So, you know what I mean? Yeah, anything else for the good of the order?
And get outside, just not Jada outside. Shout out to Jada outside.
Yeah, I'm
But it's
saying.
like sometimes you gotta get outside. Like sometimes you might have to like put your feet in the sand. I know for a lot of black men, and what I'm saying, like, mugs, like, man, the sand, and and I used to be like that, and I ain't the most open guy in the world now, so don't, so I ain't, what I mean, it ain't no smoke.
Still ain't got him out in one of these cabins. You know what I'm saying? We working on that though.
Yeah,
Majestic out in the cabin somewhere.
yeah, cabins. You know what I'm saying? That was Freddie the 13th, and like you being sent off. Like cabins to me was like some kid shit. That was like some kid shit. That like when your family didn't want to see you for a couple weeks, you had to go to a cabin. Like you was like you go Camp Kiwatha. And then you be able to Camp Kiwatha and the food stinks, and you know what I'm saying? Like, get some kids from another neighborhood is picking boogies out their mouth, picking boogies and flicking them at people. So, it was all kinds of stuff for me in cabins. But no, I'm getting better with that idea. But no, I do think it's important, even in, again, LA is unique in that you can be outside. Like you can literally go somewhere and see mountains and shit and be on run up Runyon and Canyon and all that. You know what I'm saying? But to take advantage, especially as we talk about people having challenges being inside, to take advantage of the natural world and the wonders that exist with that. So
Indeed.
With that, say peace.
All right. And I ain't gonna say nothing else. So peace.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to Good Brothers. Thank you to my good brother, I'm Majestic. If you want to support the podcast, the most important thing you can do is share it where you listen, social media, with a friend, maybe with a coworker. You know what I'm saying? That's to your own discretion. We record these conversations regularly, and with the goal of enlightening the world, or those who would listen, with some of our thoughts and reflections that bounce off of how we've moved through the world together, and with the collective ideas and some of the our perspective and where we sit. My hope is that you will get something of value from every recording. And again, if you want to support the podcast, the best thing you can do first is share. Second thing you can do is become a patron. If you search Justice Rajee, that's Justicee on the internets, particularly on the Patreon, I know you'll find a page and you can become a subscriber, and that helps me to offset the production costs, the real production costs that it takes to just keep something on the internet. Anyway, we're deep into the fall, so I hope you enjoyed our conversation. Shout out to everyone in LA that we were able to make cross paths with during our days there. Thank you to all the brothers that were able to travel, and share and be a part of that, our most recent convening that is, and coming together, around our collective and individual accountability. So in any event, I'm going to get off of this here thing and say thank you again for listening, and please keep your eye out for upcoming recordings. Peace.